We've reached a new level of cope in the r/Stalker subreddit. As Lightning Count 1 says, the A-Life system in Stalker 2 is not as bad as you think. So before you furiously type away about how I am wrong, please listen to the reasoning for it. First and foremost, this game is massive. In old Stalker games, you could run from one side of the map to another in 2 to 3 minutes without too much to interrupt you. Mainly because maps were sectioned off, but that's besides the point. Sometimes you would hear NPCs having battles way off and no way to see where they were coming from. Sometimes you would roll up in a battle already completed and find looted bodies. This can't happen in a game as massive as Stalker 2 for a few reasons, but I will simply point out the primary one, memory usage. I can go on and on to explain this, but instead I will point out the pre-patch restock area. Before they patched it, there were so many NPCs that the game was creating and tracking in restock that you would crash. People with 32 gigs or even 64 of RAM were crashing in this area. I'm hesitant to call it a memory leak as the problem went away when you left restock, at least it did for me. Memory leaks generally do not resolve themselves like this. You almost always have to restart the program or PC. Non-gaming example would be that you don't fix Adobe by closing the print to PDF dialog. The memory leak still exists and still bogs you down until you close Adobe itself. In terms of Stalker 2, leaving restock should not solve a memory leak. In fact, it should make it worse as the memory leak would still exist and now you have to load a new area. Yet quickly completing quests and leaving restock resolves the leak. Again, it did for me before the patches fixed this. If old A-Life existed, then everyone's complaints would be the same. Why are NPCs in Cordon crashing me when I'm in Yaniv? Or why are guards fighting blind dogs in cement factories slowing me down in the Duca mission? That's just one example of it, and the primary reason why A-Life was changed to be a radius around the player, at least in my opinion. Back to the original point of the game being massive. I was in Yaniv after completing a certain main mission involving a red glowy thing. The game told me to talk to Sidorovich in Cordon. I never went there in this playthrough, so I decided to simply walk all the way down there. I could have had Gary take me to Zalicia and walk from there, but I wanted to hoof it for some reason. Plus, I like roaming the zone, so win-win. It took me 15 minutes to travel there. In Shadow Chernobyl, Clear Sky, COP, you could walk from one end of the map to another in 35 minutes depending on what fights you get into. Along the way, I noticed a few A-Life quirks. The big flaw I have found that's if you're basically set up for max travel, thunderberry endurance, good weight, and plenty of energy drinks, then the game can have trouble loading things in. I was sprinting from Red Forest through stonks and garbage and realized I saw no one the entire time. I stopped and checked my map and suddenly heard a bloodsucker roar. Obviously this is a problem with the system, but it does highlight how it works. Instead of being map-wide and bogging your PC down with junk data, the game prioritizes the bubble around you, something anyone who spends more than a day on the subreddit already knows. Ever notice how the same set of houses always has snorks, bandits, or other enemies to fight? Ever pass by the same buildings 3 to 4 times and pick a faction each time you travel through, only to have to fight bloodsuckers the next time you go there? The A-Life system appears to be percentage based off of areas and points of interest. In terms of system resource usage, this makes a lot of sense. Now, the flaws I mentioned earlier do need to be ironed out. You can't have a system that creates an open zone due to you being too fast for the spawning mechanics. That being said, I have seen a very lot of stupid comments and posts in the sub lately, posting about how the game was rushed and pushed out for greed is the height of ignorance and indifference. Development of this game stopped in 2022 for very obvious reasons. Members of GSC left the company to fight in the war, and there are over 100 names in the credits for this game in the memorandum section. That should be a very sobering moment for anyone. The Bubble A-Life system is a generic mechanic. The AI spawn system, my bad. This isn't A-Life, and no offense, but it wouldn't take 3 to 4 minutes in the OG games to run across the zones. I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's pretty fair. 2, 3, 4 minutes, maybe even 5, depending on what you're doing. I may have underestimated, he says, but it would not take 15 to 20 that it currently does. I can run across Zayton from Sawmill to Ranger Station pretty quickly if I have full food bars and slamming Stalker energy. This can't happen in a game as massive as Stalker 2. Then why are they advertising A-Life 2.0 before launch? They were literally advertising a more advanced version of A-Life called A-Life 2, and now all we have is a watered-down version that's less intricate. The big question is whether the A-Life 2.0 system was developed and later scaled down, or if it was just marketing, and what we have now is basically what was envisioned from the start. And they just keep going back and forth in the comments. You know, this guy calls it a cope thread, which it really is, man, it really is. But it doesn't make sense because at the end of his post, he says, he talks about how it's a bubble and how it's not really, like, he says that there is a system, but at the same time, he acknowledges the bubble and the spawning and how if you go too quickly from one area to another, shit just doesn't spawn and like can't keep up with you. So he's not really acknowledging it. Like the rest of this shit is all just fucking like yeah, he's defending it, but at the same time he's not because he's not, you know. And then we've got this comment about the A Life mentions, and the day prior to release, they mentioned that an intern fucking deleted the mention of it. I mean, you could really go off of that. You could believe one way or another, you know, what they actually like if there was a purpose for that. But I mean, they're not slick, dude. A game like that, that's one day from release, and they're not gonna know. They don't think people are gonna notice if they change anything about it in any way, even if it's just a line of text in the description, and then they're just gonna say, "Oh well, hey, you know, that was an intern, you know, that was our bad, right? Don't worry, it's still in the game." This fucking guy is just talking about mods. Call of Chernobyl is not massive, dude. Unless you mean just by no, okay, no, this is fucking just fucking serious with this shit. Thankfully, Reddit seems to have gotten over its honeymoon period. So you know, the majority of the comments in this thread are just disagreeing. They're saying, well, you know, hey, yeah, this is an A life. Okay, it's not the same. You know, this can't happen. Then why are they advertising it? You know, again, A life is missing in action. The mentions, like, come on, dude, fucking, it's not as bad as we think. It's a lot worse. Yeah, people have woken up to the whole thing. Okay, this is. I just hope we don't have more shit like this, okay, man? Because this was fun to read. I'll say that it was fun to read. Um, but I don't know. Like he acknowledged it at the end, so like I don't understand. You know, fucking. I don't know, man. You know, I will say though. So when he says it can't happen in a game as massive as Stalker 2, and then he talks about memory usage. That could be one of the main reasons why it's taking so long, you know, like why they're struggling so much with it, you know, being the whole, you know, different engine, different everything entirely. And they've got to, you know, migrate everything over, basically just, you know, restart anew. I don't know. I'm not a game developer. I don't know shit about it, so just my 2 cents. But hey, you know, maybe even in his own little backwards way, Lightning Count 1 is on to something. Maybe we'll see.